My name is Clara. I work as a conservator-restorer at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. I spend my days poring over the cracks of time, on ancient paintings, in fragile porcelain, on the yellowed pages of manuscripts. My work is patience. It's the ability to see not only what is, but also what was, and with the utmost care, to restore lost beauty, to mend fragments, to strengthen weakened foundations. For 15 years, I naively believed that these same principles applied to marriage. I viewed Julian and my union as a priceless masterpiece we were creating together. We were co-authors, and I believed that any crack can be mended, any faded color can be revived, if there is love, patience, and desire. Julian was a composer. Not just a composer, but a genius whose music penetrated the skin and made the very soul vibrate. He was the soul of our world, and I was its quiet, safe haven. Our house in Notting Hill, with its cream facade and small garden where my roses bloomed. Image of an elegant house in Notting Hill was filled with the sounds of his piano and the smell of oil paints from my small attic studio. We were the perfect couple from a bohemian romance, creator and keeper. He created the new, I preserved the old. We were yin and yang, a perfect balance. At least, that's what it said in the score of our lives, which I knew by heart. I was so absorbed in maintaining harmony on the visible surface that I failed to hear how, deep within our symphony, false, dissonant notes were sounding. Our first 12 years were like a flawlessly executed sonata. We met at a Turner exhibition, and a conversation about the light in his paintings flowed smoothly into dinner, sunrise on the Thames embankment, and the realization that we had found in each other the missing piece of our souls. He said I was his tuning fork, attuning him to true feelings. I saw him as the living embodiment of art, passionate, unpredictable, all-consuming. We married and began building our life, like a meticulous restorer restoring a painting layer by layer. Our foundation was a shared passion for beauty. Our walls were endless conversations about art, music, history, everything under the sun. Our roof was tenderness and a deep, almost mystical sense of unity. When our daughter Maya was born, Julian wrote a lullaby for her. A simple, tender melody that seemed woven from moonlight and my love for her. This lullaby became the soundtrack to our marital bliss. Every evening, he sat at the piano, and the house was filled with these sounds, and I, rocking Maya in my arms, felt like the happiest woman in the universe. Our life was full of rituals that strengthened our union. Sunday brunches, followed by trips to the Portobello flea market. Evenings spent in Covent Garden, where we discussed not so much the production as the feelings it evoked in us. Annual trips to Italy, to Florence, where we wandered for hours through the Uffizi Gallery, holding hands. Julian said that there he recharged his creative batteries, and I recharged my soul. I was confident in us. I looked at other couples who fought and broke up, and felt a quiet, slightly arrogant calm. This wouldn't affect us. We were different. Our connection was deeper, more subtle, woven of music and eternity. This confidence, this blind faith in the uniqueness of our masterpiece, was the reason I didn't notice the destruction for so long. It all began when Julian was asked to write an opera for English National Opera. It was his dream project, the pinnacle he'd been working toward his entire life. I was immensely proud and happy for him. I understood it would require his full immersion, and I was ready to be an even more reliable support system for him. He threw himself into his work. He'd disappear into his studio for hours, sometimes for days at a time. Our family life faded into the background. Dinners became lonely, conversations short and devoted exclusively to his opera. "Forgive me, my love," he'd say, kissing me as we ran. "I'm not here now. I'm completely immersed in music. As soon as I'm finished, I'm all yours." Along with the opera, Serafina entered his life. a young, incredibly talented soprano, who had been cast in the lead role. She wasn't just a voice, she was a gift. Julian spoke of her with the admiration he'd previously reserved for music. She doesn't sing, Clara, she lives in every sound. She understands my music like no one else. At first, I was happy for him. A creative union, a tandem that would help him create a masterpiece. But then her name began to be heard too often. Serafina, and I found the perfect interpretation of an aria today. Serafina suggested a brilliant libretto for the second act. I wrote something incredible for Serafina's voice. Serafina, her voice. I gradually disappeared from his creative and personal space. He became irritable. Any question I had that wasn't related to his work was met with hostility. Our physical intimacy faded. I'm too exhausted, he said. All my passion goes into music. One day, I walked into his studio late at night. He was sitting at the piano, but he wasn't playing. He was listening to a recording. It was Serafina's voice. He sat with his eyes closed, and on his face was an expression of such ecstasy that I hadn't seen it in many years. He didn't notice me. I quietly left, and for the first time, an icy chill crept into my heart. This was more than creativity. It was worship. The next few months were torture. I shared a house with a man who was becoming increasingly alien to me. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I tried to talk to him, but he accused me of not being there for him, of not understanding a genius at the moment of his greatest triumph. I began to notice details, like a restorer notices the subtle traces of a later overpainting on an ancient icon. A new silk scarf I never gave him. A sudden passion for Argentine tango. Serafina showed me a few moves, it's incredibly liberating. His phone, which had previously been shared, was now password protected. One evening, he said they had a late-night rehearsal at the theater. I called a mutual friend who worked as a lighting technician there. "Hi, Tom," I said as casually as I could. "Julian forgot his sheet music at home, I'd like to drop it off." "Are you up late tonight?" "That's weird," Tom replied. "We've cancelled all our rehearsals today. There's a power problem." I sat there, phone in hand, the ground slipping out from under me. I knew where he was. There was only one club in town where they danced real Argentine tango. I got dressed, called a taxi, and went there. I wasn't planning on making a scene. I just had to see. I stood in a dark corner of the room. And I saw them. They were dancing. Image of a couple passionately dancing tango. It wasn't just a dance. It was foreplay. His hands on her back, her legs wrapped around his thigh, their gazes. They were one. The world around them didn't exist. After the dance, he leaned in and kissed her. A long, deep kiss, devoid of any artistic expression. Just raw, animal desire. I left the club, vomiting all over the sidewalk. My world, my masterpiece, my perfectly restored life was a fake. Skillful, beautiful, but fake. I didn't make a scene. I went home and went to bed. When he returned in the early morning, smelling of someone else's perfume and wine, I pretended to be asleep. What could I say? I was in shock, paralyzed by grief. I decided to wait until the premiere. I wanted to look him in the eyes after he presented the world with his masterpiece, born of betrayal. Those weeks were hell. I smiled, supported him, played the role of a loving wife, while inside I was dying. The day of the premiere arrived. I put on my best dress. I sat in the director's box. Maya sat next to me, so proud of her dad. The hall was full. The lights went down. And the music began to flow. It was brilliant music. Passionate, tragic, painfully beautiful. But it wasn't his music. It was their music. I heard their tangos in it, their whispers, their nights. Serafina's main aria was a declaration of love. She stood on stage in the spotlight, singing to him as he sat in the orchestra pit. And it was their dialogue. The entire audience applauded, standing up. Maya wept with delight, and I sat there, aware that I was attending a memorial service for my marriage. There was a banquet after the performance. He was triumphant. He stood surrounded by critics and admirers. Serafina was next to him, beaming. They didn't even try to hide their affair. He approached me. "Well?" he asked, his eyes shining. "It's brilliant, Julian," I replied evenly. "But this isn't your opera. This is yours." The smile faded from his face. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything. About the tango. About the night rehearsals. About everything." He led me into an empty corridor. "Clara, I interrupted him. "Just answer one question. Why?" He was silent for a long time. And then he said the words that became my death sentence. "With you, everything was too right, too calm. Like a museum. But she is life. She is fire. I am a composer, Clara, I need fire, not silence." He compared my love, our life, to the silence of a museum. He devalued everything we were. He trampled on 15 years of our life because he was bored. I took my wedding ring off my finger and placed it in his hand. "Then burn, Julian. And I will remain in my silence. Starting tomorrow, my lawyer will be communicating with yours." I turned and left, taking with me a crying, bewildered Maya. The first months were the worst. The house that had once been filled with music was plunged into a deafening silence. Julian moved out the very next day. He didn't even try to explain or apologize. He simply disappeared. I had to tell Maya everything. It was the hardest conversation of my life. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that her father, her idol, had traded their family for fire? She withdrew, stopped talking. His betrayal devastated us both. I took a leave of absence from work. I couldn't touch art. Everything seemed fake. I wandered our huge house like a ghost. Everything reminded me of him. His chair, his sheet music, even the cup he used to drink his coffee from. The pain was physical. It twisted me from the inside, making it hard to breathe. I lost weight, became haggard. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I looked like one of those damaged paintings they bring into my studio, with cracked varnish, faded colors and holes in the canvas. The divorce proceedings turned our tragedy into an ugly farce. Julian, elated by the opera's success and his new love, wanted to escape the past as quickly as possible. He hired the best lawyer, and they began methodically destroying me. They demanded that the house be sold because it was joint property. They contested my custody of Maya, claiming I was emotionally unstable and was turning her against her father. They divided everything: furniture, paintings, bank accounts. Our shared life was dissected and valued as if at auction. The most humiliating thing was that he tried to take my piano from me. The very piano on which he composed a lullaby for Maya. He called it his working instrument. For me, it was a symbol of our shattered happiness. We met in impersonal lawyers' offices. He wouldn't look me in the eye. He became a stranger, cold, calculating. I didn't recognize him as the young man with whom I'd spoken about the light in Turner's paintings. His fire had consumed all humanity within him. I fought. Not for myself. For Maya. I couldn't let him take her home away from her as well. I went into debt, hired a good lawyer, and fought for every inch of our space, for every fragment of our former life. This wasn't a battle for property. It was a battle for dignity. The trial lasted over a year. In the end, I won. I retained the house and custody of Maya, but I had to pay him a huge compensation. We also kept the piano. On the day the court's decision came into effect, Julian asked to meet. Without lawyers. We met in the park, on our bench, where he once proposed to me. It was a cold autumn day. He looked tired. There was no longer any fire in his eyes. Only ash. I wanted to apologize, he said quietly, for the monster I was during the divorce. It was all her. Serafina. She's afraid of the past. It's not her, Julian. It's always been you. I know, he nodded. I just wanted you to know. I never meant to hurt you like that. But I did. We were silent for a long time. Do you ever play Maya's lullaby? I asked. He shuddered. No, I can't. I tried. But my fingers won't obey. This melody belonged to the world I destroyed. At that moment, I realized he, too, was being punished. He had lost more than just us. He had lost a part of his soul, a part of his music. I forgive you, I said. And I truly meant it. Not for you. For myself. I don't want to live with this burden anymore. I stood up and walked away without looking back. It was our last, quietest, saddest chord. 3 years passed. Our divorce became a mere fact of life. I paid off my debts. Maya entered art college. She found herself in sculpture. She learned to transform her pain into beauty. The house was filled with life again. But a different life. Instead of Julian's music, the laughter of Maya's friends and my favorite jazz records now echoed. The piano stands in the living room, covered with a cover. Sometimes Maya approaches it, but never plays. It is our silent memorial to the past. I returned to work. My first project after returning was a badly damaged Renaissance fresco. Image of a damaged ancient fresco someone in later centuries had painted over it with a rough layer of paint. I had to clean it away, centimeter by centimeter, to restore the artist's original intent to the world. This work became my therapy. Peeling off layer after layer of someone else's rough daub, I felt as if peeling off layers of pain, resentment, and disappointment. And beneath them, I found myself. Not the naive Clara who believed in eternal harmony, but a new one, stronger, wiser, knowing the value of fragility and the worth of authenticity. I don't know what will happen next. There's no man in my life. But there's no emptiness either. It's filled with work I love, a daughter I'm proud of, friends who've been through hell with me, and a silence that no longer frightens. This is my silence. My space. And I decide what sounds and colors to fill it with.